Hello, good morning. Welcome to Smart Man's Business. Andrew Bariji this morning, and definitely it's the 29th. That is December, just a few days to wind up the year. And of course, we need to understand that 2023 has been quite an economic roller coaster. That is for the nation of Uganda. Of course, there are quite lots of aspirations the government had actually put in place to make sure that they are being achieved. That some of these were being witnessed into the national budget of the financial year 2023 2024. But of course, the bigger picture is that getting to understand and assess what are those possibilities that the nation has actually been in position to achieve economically. And of course, when we talk about all this, it all comes back mainly to the household individuals, the household incomes. To what degree have they increased? Taking a look at the population growth vis-a-vis the resource availability, growth and innovation, and so many more of those related perspectives. Now, of course, as we take a look, 2023, which has been an economic roller coaster for Uganda, marked by both highs and lows. Now we approach the year's end with a crucial assessment that is of the government's economic aspirations and their impact. And of course, here we delve into quite some of the key perspectives that the government of Uganda has definitely put up in place, and to see, what were the aspirations vis-a-vis what really has come out. But of course, some of them have actually not been successful simply because of unforeseen circumstances where we see a point and the government where the government had to revert the resources to fulfill those priorities at the moment. Now, of course, when it comes to matters of boosting economic growth, as we are now getting to take a look at some of those aspirations for the financial year 2023, of course, there was a target to achieve 7% of the gross domestic product growth rate. And of course, as of quarter 3, 2023, Uganda's GDP growth stood at 5.8%. Yes, 5.8%. So that really clearly shows you that there was a shortage of about because when you subtract 7 minus 5.8, that gives you roughly that is 1.8. So 1.2 rather. So you can clearly see that it was less by 1.2% in terms of achieving that. Now this was lower than the target, but still indicative of a rebound from the pandemic-induced slow down. So first target, GDP at 7%, and as of the third quarter, the GDP had actually was only 5.8%. So, but of course, we need to understand that while not definitely meeting the target, the positive growth signifies a little bit of progress in sectors like agriculture. Despite the fact that when we were assessing the degree at which credit has been availed to the different sectors in the economy, we got to realize that the manufacturing sector, trading sector, the service sector seem to really have obtained the biggest shares compared to agriculture, but still it has still witnessed progress in this financial year, and yes, in agriculture services. But however, despite all that, concerns remain about high inflation and external debt hindering further acceleration. So that is quite something that probably might be a target for the financial year 2024-2025. Most especially now for the next year 2025, seeing how we can get rid of the public debt. All right. Now, still, we as we proceed further, there is another aspiration of the government for the year 2023, as it was on the stat, which was to increase industrial sector's contribution to GDP from 20% to 25%. But of course, the industrial growth still has been mixed with sub-sectors like we see agro-processing performing well, while others like the textiles are facing challenges, are being facing challenges, and the overall contribution to GDP still remains around 20%. But of course, despite all this, there is still steps being taken to ensure that there is massive progress as a result of that, as we see. Now, of course, the government's focus on value addition and import substitution, that is through industrialization, was crucial for to create jobs, actually, most especially, and also improve on export diversification. Now, of course, with the value addition comes the aspect of exportation, value added, then export. Now, that is one of the key perspectives that Uganda is really looking up to. So 20%, the contribution of the of industrialization from 20% to 25% GDP, definitely it's not yet been achieved, but of course we are still yet there. We are getting there, rather. Now, another aspiration for 2023, as it was actually on the start, we had increasing export earnings by the government by 15%. Export earnings by 15%. And of course, this brings us clearly to understand what has really been happening around our neighbors, most especially Sudan, Kenya, and Tanzania, where actually some of our exports were being denied right there. But of course, that explains quite a lot. I can understand there could be the perspective of protectionism, where the domestic industries of those nations had to be protected from the penetration of foreign goods. Or it could be also a matter of what is the quality that you were exporting out there in those countries. But of course, despite all those happening, we're able at least to access new markets from, for example, Senegal. One is one of those markets that we were able to have access to this year. Actually, the president came to this country, Uganda. Senegal, we have, I think, Algeria. When it comes to milk production and distribution, I think even Zambia, some of the markets we've actually looked into, and as we get out of our comfort zones, just to rely only on the regional markets. But of course, we still see that export growth in 2023 has been subdued. That is due to global factors like the Ukraine war and the rising shipping costs. And Ali estimates suggest a potential 5 to 7% increase, falling short of the target. So the target has still not really been achieved as yet. But of course, boosting exports is vital for earning foreign currency and definitely stimulating economic activity and diversifying export products beyond traditional commodities like coffee and gold, which is crucial to achieve any of these targets, which the government has actually set forward for the financial year for this year 2023. But of course, you've realized that all that we've listed, there is still a shortage. And the big question is, why are we experiencing these shortages? Why are we experiencing these blockages? Why are we not really getting there as we really anticipate? Now, of course, there is also inflation, which has actually been the huge talk. And 2022 really was a year where, when Uganda experienced the highest of the inflation, where we almost reached 10%, and the central bank rate went as far as 10 point. Some kind of basis points, which I'm not certain there, but it was really high. But of course, it's been one of the key aspirations of the government for this year, 2023, to maintain inflation within 3 to 5% target range. But of course, inflation has been a major concern in 2023 still, and exceeding the target and reaching double digits in the recent months. Now, this is primarily due to the rising food and fuel prices. But of course, for the food, for the fuel prices, we saw UNOC and Vital partnership as a way to provide security for the prices, stability for the prices. So that is something that might not be really a big cause, most especially as we are transitioning to 2024. So we anticipate probably that it will be, the fuel prices will be relatively stable in 2023 following this deal that has happened as a result of that. Now, improving welfare, social welfare, that has also been key. And that is, when we talk about social welfare, it all comes back to poverty perspectives, as the government actually had ambitions to reduce poverty levels in 2023 by 2%. But of course, data on poverty reduction in 2023 is not yet available as yet, from according to this report. But social programs like the parish development model, aiming to empower rural communities, have been kind of rolled out, which still poses a question: how many have benefited from these programs, most especially the parish development model? Of course, later on into the show, those are the matters that we shall be examining as we can conclude. But of course, we know that improving social welfare, that is through poverty reduction, healthcare access, and of course, education, all these are very crucial when it comes to long-term effectiveness of the economy. And these programs require careful monitoring and evaluation. So we've clearly seen what the country has actually been going through for the past for the past 1 year, getting to assess all these perspectives and see whether we have actually achieved any of what we have been rolling out for. But of course, despite the fact, like I told you, the country has also witnessed quite a number of events which have kind of not, have led to a shift in resources, talking about resource allocation. Now, of course, I'll still get back to some of those. We saw the coffee wheat disease outbreak. This was on June, started this very year, June 2023, and it's still ongoing. And of course, the devastating outbreak of the coffee wilt disease swept through major coffee growing regions in Uganda, threatening the country's vital coffee export industry. Now, the disease destroys coffee trees, leading to significant crop losses and impacting the livelihoods of millions of farmers. Remember, part of like what we are now getting to take a look is why have some of those aspirations not been fulfilled. And of course, there are quite a number of factors that cut across many ways that are limiting the government to achieve the economic aspirations for the year 2023. Now, of course, the outbreak caused revenue losses for Ugandan coffee farmers and exporters. Remember, part of the government's aspirations for the year 2023 was to increase export earnings by 15%. And now we see this coffee disease is reducing revenues of farmers, and some of which are exporting. So that is a real diversion from the aspiration set by the government. Now, of course, we see that Ugandan farmers and the exporters, it has affected the farmers, the exporters, affecting government foreign exchange earnings at the same time, and economic growth targets have been tampered with still in the process. Now, the government has implemented measures like, of course, quarantines, spraying programs to control disease, but significant challenges still remain as a result of that. So away from that, we take a look at the floods and landslides still. That is throughout 2023 with major events in April. And of course, heavy rains, which triggered severe floods, and actually November in various parts of Uganda, displacing thousands of people, of course, damaging infrastructure and disrupting agriculture activities. And we experienced actually some roads that were blocked as a result of the heavy rains. The road heading to, we saw the road heading to Chengera, which sank in. That is a real hindrance as a result of that. We saw the Katonga incidents. All these factors are adding up. Now, the floods and landslides definitely have caused some huge livelihoods, life property, impacting food security. And of course, the government allocated resources for relief, efforts and infrastructure repair, but definitely long-term solutions for disaster management are still needed. That is to make sure that all this is dealt away with. Now, another limitation which has limited the success of some of these programs is the rise in global food prices. Now, of course, this is ongoing. That is still even this year 2023 because of the war in Ukraine, definitely, and other global factors like droughts and supply chain disruptions led to significant increase in food prices. That is worldwide, and this impacted Uganda, which relies on imports for some essential food items, as you can really see. Now, even I cannot leave out the aspect of delays in oil production, and where Uganda's highly anticipated oil production faced delays due to logistical challenges and legal disputes. Now, this pushed back the expected revenue stream from the oil exports, impacting government budget projections and economic diversification plans. Now, remember the oil perspective was definitely tampered with civil society organizations, which were, I remember the ECOP, which were campaigning the ECOP and all the negative, attitude people had towards it. You remember that whole perspective where Ugandans even went to strike on the embassies of the different nations held strikes in different countries as why they shouldn't go ahead with the ECOP. We saw some of the companies actually which had planned to take on this project, to finance this project, withdraw from that project as a result of that. So it's been quite a huge perspective why the government of Uganda has not been able to achieve some of these aspirations. But of course, I'm still returning back to break down these matters further as we take a look at these aspirations step by step, and later on we shall be able to see what is the way forward for them to be executed efficiently. Smart means business. I'm Andrew Barigi. It's exactly 23 minutes past 7, and of course we're gonna take a short break and return with Caribbean, South Africa, and international updates. Stick around.